All right, so it's been a while since I filmed any content for Hardcastle Towers, and that's mainly because life gets in the way. We've been really busy. But today I thought I'd come and give you an update on the pew situation. So as you can see, this is post-demolition. All of the lath and plaster walls have been taken down and those crappy old blue carpets have been removed. All of the pews have been taken out and dismantled. That's the pile of parts that are left from the pews. So if you remember from those earlier episodes, my plan was to salvage that timber from the pews because I wanted to just keep all of that wood from the church in the church. And I've spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out what I'm going to do with all of these pieces, and I've got a little bit of a plan.
We'd love it if you became part of this adventure by subscribing. Oh, and don't forget to tickle my bell.
So what you're looking at here, the seats, the seat part where you would park your bum on the pew. These had another piece on about that big, but they were kind of curved and angled, so I couldn't really use that for flooring or ceilings or panels on the walls. So I decided to chop these up to more usable pieces. So these are roughly 8 inches. Some of them are slightly bigger because that piece that I cut off, each one had a slightly different angle. So I didn't get uniform pieces, so I'm gonna have to trim them again to get them all the same size. Because what I'm thinking of doing is either some kind of sort of shiplap pattern where these would actually be horizontal and I would just stack them on top of one another, or if I put them in the ceilings, then I'll just try and butt them up against each other and slightly overlap them. Maybe I'll put a groove in it, do like a tongue and groove thing. I haven't decided, but if I could just get them all 8 inches, then I can use them in some kind of paneling way, whether it's for a wall, a floor, or a ceiling. So that leaves us with the back section of the pews. So what you're looking at here is the backrest, basically. You see that's kind of like convex. That there, this T-shape that you can see, is where we had these guys. So these are the hymn sheet shelves, which are really cool because they're just handmade and they make really good spice racks. But I don't need 50 of them. So I honestly don't know what I'm going to do with all of these. I guess I could sell them for like $30 a pop, and you could have a piece of Hardcastle Towers in your kitchen or your pantry or whatever. But then this is Canada, so the shipping would be outrageous. I don't know, maybe I'll just try and sell them all as one big batch. So if you live in Nova Scotia and you want to buy 50, maybe we'll meet up with you and we'll agree on a price and you can just take them all and I don't have to bother with shipping. But it would be nice if I could sell them and try and sort of claw back some of the money that I've lost on this ever-expanding project. What I'm thinking here, and I've done some very basic calculations, is I could use them, I could split them in two, like cut it right down the middle, and use these whole sections as wainscoting. Is it wainscoting or wainscoting? I've heard both versions. I need to know which one is right. Post a comment and let me know. But I'm thinking if I cut this in half, that will give me enough. I'll get 2 pieces that I can then wainscot the whole bottom of the church and maybe whitewash those. So I'm thinking, so if you look at this one over here, so this one for some reason, oh, that was the one at the very, very back. So they didn't bother to varnish this side of it because no one would ever see it. And I just love how pale that wood is. So I'm thinking if I sand these, get them down to that, and then put a very light whitewash on so you can still see the grain through the wood, but it's nice and bright, and then use these panels, these big chunky panels, as wainscoting all around the church. It would have a different look, it would be very bright, and it'd probably go in pretty quick because they're so wide. I would have a bit of trouble on the tops and the bottoms because these are sort of convex shapes, so I'd have to be clever with some trim for the baseboards and above it, but I think that would look really cool and interesting. And then finally, the ends of the pews. So let me just flip this around and give you a look. These are the edges of the pews, and I'll be honest, I don't know what I'm going to do with them because they're really heavy and they're really thick. So the thickness, flip this round again, you can see there how thick they are. And of course that makes them really heavy. So I don't really want to be sticking them on walls or ceilings. And I don't have the machinery to slice them in half. And even if I did, they're full of nails anyway. So I really don't know what I'm going to do with those, but I don't want to chuck them out. At the worst case scenario, I could use them as firewood, but that seems a bit sacrilegious. I mean, I'm not religious, but it does seem a little bit sacrilegious to just chop them up and burn them. We'll see. So for now, I'm just going to store them in the basement, try and keep them dry down there, and then just figure out what to do with them later, I guess. Now, we kept 2 of the really long pews. In fact, these are the longest ones because these were the straight backed ones that were up against this wall. And the plan with those was to put them in the vestry at the back, which is probably going to be our sort of library slash study. That's the plan anyway. So we kept these ones intact, but I think they're too long for that space up there because we might have to put some posts in to support the wall that we're going to take out. So they might not work. And in which case, if they don't work, they might be up for sale as well. So if you want a piece of Hardcastle Towers and you have space in your house for a 16-foot long church pew, get in touch. We'll talk prices. And then we saved 2 small ones because we're going to basically use those in the mudroom that you walk into. We'll put one either side so that when you walk in, you can put your boots down, or when you're leaving, you can put your boots on when it's snowy and keep all that mess in there. But it's nice to sit down and sit on a church pew. There's my printer. Unicorn Labs is just in stasis right now. If you don't know what I do for work, I'm a landscape photographer and I sell landscape photography prints, and that's basically how I make my money with this printer that you can see here, completely covered in dust. And I've had a lot of comments from people saying, oh my God, you can't allow it to be covered in dust. Don't worry, it's shrink wrapped. I shrink wrapped the whole thing and I've covered it in various layers. So I hope it'll be fine. And then as soon as we can get in here and actually start using this space, we'll fire up the printer and Unicorn Labs will be back in action. So what are we going to do with all of this space? Well, I did make some suggestions in an earlier video and I've had loads of comments anyway, but the plan right from the very beginning was to build a loft area in that half of the main hall. So of course that new loft area is going to require some support in the basement just to hold up all of that structural weight. So I'm going to take you into the basement now and give you an update on what has happened there. This is quite interesting. So you might remember from that very first tour that I gave you when I took you down here in this basement, I got a lot of comments about people saying, what, your whole house is held up by jack stands? Well, no, it wasn't. Basically, the jack stands were just holding up the floor with the pews, and that was the support for the pews and the people. So because we're adding all of this extra weight with the structures upstairs for those new rooms in that loft area, we had to put in a lot of new supports. So now it is a veritable forest of brand new jack stands. And so a lot of people from the UK were looking at the jack stands and saying, what? That doesn't look safe. But here in North America, that's how these buildings are held up. And these jack stands, each one, I forget what the actual load is that each one can handle. So I'll just put a little number up there and do my research. But these can hold up an unbelievable amount of weight. And really, we've gone totally over the top with how many we've put in. And all of these floor joists that you can see here have been replaced with pressure treated wood, which I can tell you, oh, that wasn't cheap. Just replacing, not even any new stuff, just replacing rotten old floor joists. Very expensive. And then for the new structure that we're building up there, we've added these new beams, which are going to hold all of that up on these brand new jack stands. So I feel like it's completely over the top. I think we've over-engineered this, but I'd rather be safe than sorry, I guess. And then over here, do you remember that window that had all the holes in it, that the squirrels were just happily coming and going all the way through all day long? And then that ugly old oil tank that I had there, that's been removed. I'm really happy that we finally got that out, because it was just an environmental disaster waiting to happen. So I had someone come and pump that out and just remove it for me. So thank you very much, Chris, for doing that. That was a huge favor you did me there. So now I've boarded up that window, but before, that was pretty much the only means of ventilation down here. So my plan, I've bought a Humidex, and I'm going to install it right there and vent all of this moist air from this basement out through that window to keep this place nice and dry. So I'll show you the Humidex. Haven't got the tools to install it yet, but I'm hoping those come in the next few days and I can get that put in myself. So this right here is my Humidex. And basically, I think it's just a glorified bathroom fan, really. It sucks air from the bottom across the floor in through this device and then vents it out through the wall. But in order to install it, you need to have what they call a hole saw, which is basically a drill bit that's got a 6 1/4 inch radius on this cutter, and that will cut the perfect size hole for this vent. So basically I'm waiting for that to show up from Amazon, and then I can get this installed, and I'm hoping it's going to be a fairly easy installation. But if that works, if that just vents all that moisture from the basement, oh, it's going to be so good. I can store things down there, they won't get moldy, they won't get damp. Brilliant. Another question that I saw repeatedly in the comments, I think on the second video, was what are you going to do with the stained glass windows? Well, we're going to have to replace them because we do get cold winters here in Nova Scotia, and I need double glazed windows with bug screens because we get a lot of bugs, don't we? So these beautiful 100-year-old stained glass windows are going to have to come out and get replaced by custom double glazed windows, which are going to be very expensive. But to offset that potentially outrageous expense, I'm thinking these are going to be worth a little bit of money. So if you want a stained glass window from Hardcastle Towers, 100-year-old church, I think that's about 7 or 8 feet tall. If you want one of those, or if you want 8 of those, get in touch, we'll do a deal.
And then the framing lumber showed up, so it was time to get my exercise for the day. I had to lay out the lumber carefully so that the framers would be able to build the new walls in sequence. And if you're wondering where's Amanda been for this entire video, well, she took a break from reading to come and lift this 2x4.
I think I'm done for the day.
There's a few more than spiders there.
Do you want to put on your proper shoes?
What?
Your proper shoes?
No, this is appropriate footwear.
And so I spent the rest of the day stacking several tons of lumber, which is pretty boring to watch. So be sure to tune in to next week's episode.
Oh, look at that. That's way better.
Where I finally get that Humidex installed. But does it work?
That didn't look very good. I don't think your teeth are gonna do that.